2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
She was tear-gassed and beaten.
Images of thousands desperate to escape Taliban oppression filled our news feeds. More than 80,000 Afghans made it to America. But the story didn't end there.
It was very cold. There was no power, no heat.
Who would help our newest neighbors? I'm Andrea Smartin. In Stranger Becomes Neighbor, you'll hear the stories of some remarkable refugees who left their homes and their dreams behind, only to start over from zero.
Their only possession was 3 blankets.
And you'll meet Americans who stepped up to help them.
You want me to come when you deliver your baby.
What can one person do in the face of an international disaster decades in the making? That's Stranger Becomes Neighbor. Find us at kslpodcast.com. Follow us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen.
In today's episode of Project Recovery,
part of me wants to say, it was my own choice to run out into this dark world that I ran into and play with that fire. But there's a part of me that also says, I always felt like I had to be someone.
Make sure you listen to the end. Find us on Facebook at Project Recovery. We'll have that and much more coming up. Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction. More importantly, it's about recovery, and it's brought to you by our friends at knowyourscript.org. Now, Dr. Matt, the cool thing about knowyourscript.org is it's a fountain of knowledge at their website to be able to talk to your doctor about knowing your prescription and being an advocate for your own personal health. It's also for knowing the script to talk to yourself about what you're okay with. Because I think a lot of times, Dr. Matt, when we go to a doctor, we just take their advice and run with it. And because
something comes over you, right, when you're in the doctor's office and they start talking and you just start saying, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what it is about the doctor's office, but you just start, I think, trusting their advice. And it's good advice typically, but what's great about Know Your Script is it is a place where you can learn to be a good consumer of your own healthcare and know which questions to ask.
That's exactly what I was trying to say, but you said it so eloquently. I appreciate that. And also they talk about knowing the script when talking to your kids.
Yes.
This is the one that I really enjoy because, and when we had a guest on probably a couple of months ago, he was saying, look for moments in your life to have these genuine, authentic conversations with your kids. Now, there's no shortage of conversation starters if you listen to music, if you watch TV, if you're Netflixing. It's all around us, and this is a time to pause and have an honest conversation with your kids. Unfortunately, I've had that conversation with my kids because it was kind of forced to with my alcohol. But,
right.
We still want to further the conversation and take it into all areas of substance.
If you're a parent listening to this, ask yourself, when's the last time I turned to one of my teenage kids and said, what's the most common drug used in your school right now? What do you hear about? Just start a conversation about what's going on in their world, and you might be surprised because it's a lot more than just weed and alcohol. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and my princess is 16. She's got her driver's license, and every once in a while I go, hey, are people drinking at your school? And she goes, yeah, Dad.
Yeah.
I go, but she goes, none of my friends. And I go, how do I know you're telling me the truth? And she goes, well, because I am, Dad. And I've got to take her at face value because she doesn't have a pattern of lying. She's not in trouble. And
more importantly, if you have that conversation on a regular basis, you'll get used to their responses and how they talk about it. And when something does come up, they'll be more likely to trust you to talk about it.
It's funny that we're talking about substance abuse because there's something that's kind of been bugging me lately. So I was working on doing this thing, and it was called a binge report, and it was going to be for a local radio station.
A binge report?
A binge report
okay.
on kind of the stuff that I'm watching on Netflix
gotcha.
or whatever.
Your binge habits.
Yes. And somebody goes, well, maybe binge is not the best word to use because we're going to tie it with Casey. And I went, well, what's a better word then? And they go, well, there's going to be, people are going to draw conclusions that, you do a podcast on alcohol and substance abuse, and now you're talking about binging something else. And I go, but that's silly. Yeah. And then the more I dived into the conversation, and I just had it probably about 10 minutes ago, was that that's what bugs me in recovery. When people, and I know they're doing it with best interest in mind and in their heart, but it's when all of a sudden my everyday life becomes questioned because of the stuff I've done in the past. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
And so then I'm like, I'm not allowed to listen to White Lines by Grandmaster Flash?
No, you can't.
I'm not allowed to listen to any song that Garth Brooks talks about friends in low places.
All country music is out, I believe.
But do you understand?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of weird part of being in recovery is you want to be treated normal.
Well, I could tell while you were telling that story, it caught you off guard because binging Netflix, that's just a phrase that everybody uses now.
Yes.
In fact, I would say the word binge is more associated with things like Netflix and online streaming and YouTube than it is with alcohol anymore.
Yeah. If you went up to the average 16-year-old and said, hey, have you binged anything lately? Yeah, they're going to go, yeah, I mean, Seinfeld, The Office, whatever.
Cobra Kai,
which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is great. But it's those things in my recovery that I was afraid of. That everyone was going to have to walk around me with white gloves. That people are going to have to change the way.
So are you glad that they brought it up, that they felt like they didn't have to? I mean, sort of they're tiptoeing around it, but the person brought it up to you.
No, and I like that because I thought, no, it should be called Binge Report. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Nobody else will know what they're talking about if they change it to the high frequency viewing report.
But and then on the way in, I was listening to this song, and it was called Drugs. Yeah. And it's catchy.
Sure.
I found myself singing it. Yeah. And I wonder, because there was people in recovery, and our guest today is going to be in just a minute, and he's amazing. He's an artist, and
he's a musician. He can speak to this.
And he sings about it. But because there were people that would say, that song's a trigger for me. Now, I can tell you right now, if we listen to Back in Black, AC/DC, that'll take me back to my high school years.
Sure.
After a football game, sitting up at a kegger at Turkey Flats, and it'll invoke a certain kind of feeling.
Yeah, because that's associated. That's that Pavlovian association, to trigger the drinking response, more so than just some random song about alcohol.
Yeah, but if I turn it on at the gym and it comes on, it's still a great song, and I still like it, and it's not a trigger for me. Yeah. It'll evoke feelings, and I address those feelings, and then I leave them there, and I keep moving forward, and I go to the 45s on the curls, you know what I mean, and just start pumping the iron.
45s, yeah, right.
I swear. But that's what I'm saying is...
Let me guess at something.
Yeah.
I feel like your philosophy from the beginning with this is that you're going to come out of rehab and into a sober life, but not have to be guarded all the time. You're not going to have to cut out the things that might trigger other people. For example, you didn't come out and get a whole new group of friends. You told your mom when she said, "Oh, we can stop having alcohol at family parties." You said no. That's if people want to drink at the parties, they can drink at the parties. You didn't change your playlist, obviously, of music that you like.
I don't even have Christian rock on my phone. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be just stuck listening to Christian rock all the time.
No, that would...
Jars of Clay is not that good.
No.
Neither is Creed, and they were supposed to be Christian rock.
Were they?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I guess they were. But my point is that's your approach, is to not avoid the things that might be associated with, specifically in your case, alcohol. First of all, my question is, how's that work? Did I get that right? I mean, did you do that on purpose? I've kind of seen you do that, but I don't know if you realized you were doing that.
No, okay, so here's the honest answer. And we run an honest program. I don't spit in the face of danger. I don't put myself in situations that I think are going to get the better of me. But I also didn't want this to define me, if that makes sense.
You're still DJing at parties and weddings where
bars.
You're the only one that knew how to tap the keg.
Yep.
And bars, yeah. I think a few people said to you, is that really a good idea to be DJing at a bar?
And I guess, and what I've said early on in mine is I got sober to live. I didn't get sober to hide. And I see a lot of people in the recovery world who are hiding because they are afraid of those triggers. They're afraid of certain situations. And if you're afraid of them, listen, don't put yourself in those situations. But let's find out why you're afraid and give you the right coping skills to deal with those situations. You can't just take a right turn every time you're confronted with something. You'll just be walking around in circles.
I think it would shrink the parameters of your life, right? I mean, if you cut out any music that had to do with substance abuse, and if you quit DJing anything except for, I don't know,
bar mitzvahs,
yeah, I mean, anything that didn't have alcohol. If you required that your family wasn't around you if they were drinking, I mean, I think that would have tremendously limited your life.
And when you say that, it sounds like I'm back in rehab or in a prison, and I'm not free to make choices and live my life the way I want to. I understand that I can't drink, so I don't drink. But that doesn't mean that I can't go out and do all these other things that I used to love to do. Now, some of the things that I used to love to do and drink, I don't do anymore because I just like to drink when I was doing them.
What's one of those?
Darts.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't really like darts.
Probably drinking was invented and then darts was invented. I think that's how those go
But
together.
I could do it with the beer in my hand, so darts wasn't that bad.
Right.
But
like golf, for example, you love golf, but you always drank when you were golfing, and you didn't stay away from the golf course. You just stopped drinking there.
And my golf game's gotten better. And so I guess what I want to say to people out there, and I see it quite a bit, and I think you said it right, find out what your triggers are, find out why they are a trigger, and try to address the situation and start living. I mean, right now, isolation is a key to dependency in any addict's life. And
right.
When you start to cut out all those things, whether you like it or not, you're isolating yourself. You need to find a community, and you need to get out there and live.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think generally it's that self-knowledge. Like the best thing you can do at any point in your life, and a lot of psychologists like Carl Rogers talked about the process of becoming. That if you're a healthy, happy person, you're always becoming more of who you are until the end of your life. And so that means knowing yourself, understanding, using that self-knowledge to grow. And if you know that being around people drinking is too much for you, then use that intuition and stay away from that place. But there may be places where you can use your self-knowledge to realize you don't have to stop living your life in recovery. In fact, the ideal would be that recovery expands your life. It expands your opportunities and your happiness.
Now, I can say that I know that this is very focused on just my recovery because these are the things that I deal with. We've had many people in here for opioid addiction, heroin, meth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody goes to a meth bar. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so...
Well, and even somebody who, like, let's say for you, you're a musical guy. You've always been in the industry. You've been a DJ in lots of different ways. That's fun for you. And drinking happened there. But let's say somebody else who only went to clubs to drink and get wasted. Maybe that person shouldn't keep going to clubs, right? There's not much there for them. But for you, you have a career, and a lot of friends and fun, and music's a big part of your life. So those are different scenarios. And that's what I mean by self-knowledge. Like this hypothetical person we're thinking of, they only went there just to get plowed. And so they, coming out of rehab, might say, I don't need that in my life anymore. That was a place I used that environment just to indulge my addiction. Whereas Casey Scott, you've used that environment for your career. And
business.
That's a different situation.
Well, hey, we got an exciting guest today. His name is Ben. He comes to us from Fit to Recovery. We've had a lot of their clients and a lot of their teachers on the podcast.
He has the best shoes of any of our guests so far in 2 years. Best shoes on Ben.
And we're going to find out more about his shoes in just a few seconds. You're listening to Project Recovery right here on KSL.
A stranger with a gun came upon two teens taking pictures under a rising full moon. But violence is only the beginning of this story.
Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are. And this is a big one.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and I've spent my career talking about how lives are undone by violence. The Letter is a podcast about how lives are remade. Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I grew up in a normal family. I mean, a dad who's providing, right? Who's working extremely hard. My dad works in computers. My mom, she was a nurse. My brother and my sister both are older than me. My sister played lacrosse in college, was a national champion. My brother was a baseball player. Went and traveled, and
I think anytime you say national champion, we went above average, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, your family's average in a lot of ways, but also maybe a little bit above average.
Yeah, dynamic, right? I think each person in my family has something that I want to learn from, right? Where it's like they have their own dynamic, but it's like the typical dynamic where it's like mom cooks dinner and dad provides for the family, and the brother and sister we're all best friends.
Pretty traditional in that way.
Yeah.
It sounds nice.
Yeah, wasn't bad. Yeah, and then I got into high school. My brother partied really hard. I saw him partying really hard, and I was younger. And so,
how far apart are you and your older brother and sister?
So my brother is I think 27 or 28. I'm 24.
So 4 years?
Yeah, so I was in 8th grade and he was a senior in high school. That's what it was. Okay. And then my sister's 31, I think now.
Okay.
So she was way older. But yeah, I saw my brother partying really hard, and I was like, well, he plays sports and he can play, party, so why can't I? Right?
Do you remember when you had your first drink?
100%. Yeah. I was 13. I stole a beer out of the garage downstairs. I chugged the whole entire thing. Threw up everywhere. Disgusting. It's disgusting.
But it didn't stop you.
No, absolutely not. From there, I started drinking and smoking weed all the time. Yeah, 100%.
What kind of partying was your brother doing? Just those alcohol and weed, or did?
Well, I mean, now I learned absolutely not. But at the time, I thought that's what was happening. It was just drinking and smoking kush and doing that lifestyle. But he was definitely partying on the harder side. I don't want to tell his story, but yeah, I mean, I definitely tapped into that space too.
But you saw him continue to be able to play sports and
do his thing,
do that. So that's sort of a misleading example for a young little brother who looks up to his older brother. Sounds like you looked up to him and got along with him.
Yeah,
and he's doing all this partying and still being successful in sports and school. Yeah. That's a little misleading, right?
Yeah, and but there was also that part of me that saw my brother and my dad and my mom arguing a bunch. Oh. They didn't really know what was going on. Obviously, there was a bigger problem going on. My brother, deals with something similar to me, probably not as serious. But, I don't want to tell his story for him.
Yeah, no, and we're not asking you to tell his story. We're trying to get a kind of a gauge on you. But... a lot of people listen to this podcast. Just our guest last week, a dear friend of Matt's, Tara, she can link her addiction kind of going back to some stuff that happened to her when she was young.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you had any of that. This is something that you or did you?
It's like the part of me says that I did, and a part of me says that I didn't. Part of me wants to say no, it was my own choice to run out into this dark world that I ran into and play with that fire. But there's a part of me that also says I always felt like I had to be someone, right? I always had to do something. I always had to be this person in my family. I had to be that role in my family, which, ultimately I never felt like I really was, right? Even though I was, right? I was good in school. I was good at these sports. I did all those things, but I still felt like I wasn't.
So you kind of felt like you had something to live up to.
Exactly.
Like my older sister, she's a national champion.
My brother's cool.
Cool, big brother, doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Parents are accomplished, educated, so you kind of felt like you need to prove yourself maybe? Or?
Exactly. To fit in, right? And that's where I think part of where my addiction and alcoholism stems from is 100% wanting to fit in, right? I got around a crew of people that just drank, I would drink. I got around a crew of people that did cocaine, I would do cocaine. Right? It didn't matter which crew I was around. I would just always try and blend. I was trying to
fit in.
Yeah, fit in, just feel a part of.
So you started partying at about 13. Mm-hmm. How did the high school years go for you, Ben?
They were crazy. They were absolutely bonkers. I experimented heavily with every drug, and really understood exactly what drugs do. And then I really...
Can you think of a drug you didn't experiment with in high school?
Heroin. Heroin and crack. I mean, I guess the evil, like, you know, what
The
everyone...
biggies.
Yeah, the heroin, meth, and crack.
But everything else?
Everything else I really played with.
High school's kind of a time for a lot of party drugs, right?
Yeah, party drugs as well as like pain pills.
Okay.
We stole a lot of pain pills. We stole a lot of alcohol. We stole a lot of weed. We grew weed. We did everything. You know, we were trying as much as possible to make money and party
and provide the lifestyle that you wanted.
Yep.
So high school was crazy. Mm-hmm. Did you get in trouble with your parents in the law, or did you kind of just slide under the radar?
My senior year, I did. I got into trouble with my family, and actually my junior year, really. My junior and my senior year. I actually I got sent to go live in Omaha, Nebraska with my godfather, which was crazy, coming from the East Coast to middle of nowhere, middle of the cornfield. Yeah. And then I got sent to go live with my brother up in Portland, Maine.
So what does it take to get sent to live with a godfather in Nebraska? What did you do?
Dude, I was in this headspace where I didn't care anymore. You know, I didn't care. I had like gone into such a delusion, right, with what I had been doing, that like I felt like I don't care what my parents think any longer. I'm going to go out next year and do whatever I want. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to live my life. It doesn't matter what they think anymore, right? So I didn't abide by the rules. I didn't play by their playing field, and that caused a lot of fighting. We clashed heads. My mom and I clashed heads a lot. My dad travels for work, so my dad would come home and be super pissed off. So they're like, you know what, whatever, ship out, dude. And so I did. And then, Omaha didn't work. I just partied there too, right?
So I'm fascinated because they send you to Omaha.
Yeah.
You don't know anybody there.
No.
How long did it take you to find people who did what you did?
Oh, I mean, snap of a finger. I flew out, or we drove out there, and I had brought few ounces of kush, and so I mean I would walk into school every day. I was a senior in high school. I'd already accredited everything. I was going to college already, so I'd walk in super stoned, and kids, you know, I mean, you can see when kids are stoned walking into school in the morning, and right away I had a homie named Blake. I think that's what his name is. Hopefully he doesn't get caught up for this. But yeah, I had a homie named Blake right away. Link up with me. Right away we started making music together. Right away I found a studio, and that was kind of where I was at since I was like a sophomore in high school, was in the studio space.
Because you're a musician.
Yeah, I am.
Do you think your lifestyle and being a musician went hand in hand?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it didn't really activate until later in life, until like I had to come home from college, and I got this sick loft, and we're jumping a little bit in the story. But I got in this sick loft, and I got a really nice microphone, and I had all the interfaces, and I started really recording and getting like really messed up, and I was making good music, and people were like liking it. I was like, wow, this is the lifestyle. This is how I'm going to do it. Just get messed up and just let my brain flow. And that worked for a while until it didn't, until the narcotics team kicked down my door. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They'll put an end to a party pretty quick. Huh?
We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
But so you go to Oklahoma.
Omaha.
Okay.
Same difference.
And we'd like to apologize to all our fans in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Go Cornhuskers.
Yeah. And so then you get sent from there to go live with your brother up in Portland.
Yeah.
And at this point, what is your brother saying about your attitude and your party lifestyle?
Dude, play lacrosse. Don't worry. You're straight. I'll take care of you. That was like his mantra. Like, if you play lacrosse, you'll be straight. Like, if you play lacrosse, I'll take care of you. I'll make sure that you're straight. I'll make sure that you get your head right. And that's what I did. I actually didn't go to so they had heard that a kid from Annapolis is if you guys don't know, is a very, very well-known lacrosse city.
I have two boys that are big lacrosse players, and
Yeah.
so I've learned through them that that's the place to be.
Yeah, and so they had heard that a kid from Annapolis transferred up to Portland and wasn't going to play lacrosse. So first day walk in, there's a kid sitting in the office, and I'm like getting they gave me an iPad. This is actually hilarious. They gave me an iPad, and they're like, "This is how you get to your first class." And I was like, "Of course it is. This is classic." I didn't have to worry about anyone. And then this kid stands up and is like, "Hey, what's up? Are you Ben?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. Who are you?" You know what I mean? I was kind of stoned, and I was kind of paranoid already. And he was like, "I'm the goalie for the lacrosse team. I'm the captain of the lacrosse team. I want to talk to you." And I was like, "I don't have any interest." And so I didn't go to the first 2 days of tryouts. And my brother found out. And he said, this is Maine, right? And it's March. Maine in March is 30 degrees, right? 28 degrees. And it's wind chill, super high. It's on the coast, so it's really cold outside. He's like, "If you don't go to tryouts tomorrow, you're sleeping outside." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I will absolutely 110% put you on the front porch and you'll sleep outside until the spring, till lacrosse season's over." So,
because his only goal was for you to play lacrosse and he'd get your head straight.
Yep, and that was seriously it. And so I go to the third day of tryouts, and everybody was super stoked on it. They were super happy, and I was like, "Dude, you should hate me. I'm walking into tryouts on the third day, and you're allowing me to play. This is wrong, right?" I felt wrong. I knew I was being wrong.
Because that wouldn't fly in Annapolis.
No,
or any other place,
they would tell me absolutely get off the field. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so it was just a different world up there. So I played lacrosse, yeah. And that was actually Portland. I actually did get my mind back on straight. I was working out every morning, 6 a.m., going to practice every day, coming home, eating a healthy diet, not partying every single day, still partying, but not how it was. Surfing as much as I could with my brother, working out, doing jiu-jitsu. I was doing a lot of things to get my mind back together. We won a state championship in lacrosse. I had 3 goals in the state championship game. I was a second-team All-American, and then went off to college. Totally almost died.
So, Dr. Matt, you're the psychologist. I mean, and what I've noticed in the recovery, that little time that I've been in it, I used to say all the time that I don't need anybody telling me what to do, and I don't like structure, and this is BS.
Yeah.
Come to find out, in my sober life, I'm a big fan of structure.
Big fan.
I like to know certain things. I know that I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, I make me a healthy breakfast, I get to work, I pick up my kids. Yep. I really enjoy structure. And it sounds like your brother was onto something where he's like, he just was trying to give you a little structure from what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. That was all it was, right? More or less.
I think structure and also purpose, right? And I think that at an older age, you just rattled off your purposes, right? Mm-hmm. You have purpose in your health, in your work, and in your kids. And so if you have structure, then you can fulfill your purpose every day. When you're a younger person, high school and whatnot, you don't have those kind of purposes, but that's where sports can come in, or clubs or groups, something where you pledge your time and to be part of it. So if you're part of a lacrosse team or football team or soccer team, that gives you purpose. You have value. If you're not around, the coach knows it. Kids come find you. So having structure and purpose together, I think, keeps people on a productive life path.
Yeah.
So second team All-American, you're off to college. Where do you go to college?
I went to a college called St. John's College in Annapolis, so I went back to Annapolis. It's a little discussion-based private liberal arts college.
Lacrosse team?
No, didn't play lacrosse. I sailed, which is crazy. I decided that I wanted to sail in college. So I sailed for the first year and a half.
So competitive, for the listeners, it's competitive, right?
Competitive sailing, yeah.
That's a thing?
Yeah, it was a thing. It was one of those.
We're from a landlocked state, Casey.
Yeah.
We got the Great Salt Lake. They got a rowing team out there.
No, they actually have a yacht club, too.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Salt Lake Yacht Club, they sail on Wednesday nights. That's a plug for y'all.
So you're on the sailing team at this kind of liberal arts college. Mm-hmm. And After coming off great success in high school with lacrosse and up in Maine, how long does it take you to?
He saw it. Really quick. I fell really quick. Right away, college in my eyes was like, oh my God, this is college. You know what I mean? Like, it
sounds like you've been planning this for a long time.
Yeah.
Like you were planning, when I'm out of the house, when mom and dad aren't looking over my shoulder, I'm going to do what I want to do, and that includes partying. And then you got there, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Yep. It was like this idea, like, no longer will I live under that, like, hold.
That regime.
Yeah, I will free myself. Like, you know, like in a weird philosophical way, that's kind of how it was. I'm freeing myself. And it was the exact opposite of that. It was absolutely 110% the exact opposite.
What do you mean?
I chained myself. I chained myself to it, to my darkness, right? To my problem, which is alcoholism and drug addiction and mental health. I dated a girl that I shouldn't have dated. She went to school in New York City. I was in Annapolis. I'd take the train up, try to break up with her. And she didn't let me. The next weekend, she called me, said she's going to cheat on me that night. And that sent me off the deep end. I tried to kill myself that night, which was so, like, wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so mentally, like, not logical.
Back up just a little bit. So you said, let's get into it. So you said this is a girl you shouldn't have dated. Well, explain that for a second. Like, what was it about her or the relationship that you knew?
I mean, you don't have to put her on blast, but was she heavy into drugs?
No. She was like one of those chicks that, like, you'd wake up on Saturday morning and she'd be like doing calculus. Like, you know what I mean? She's for fun. Like, she was like a brainiac, super, super, super brilliant. And I wasn't. You know what I mean? Or I was, but, you know, I was in a different headspace. You know, I wanted to party, and I knew that was my like motto, and that was my goal, and that wasn't hers. And so I felt like I was doing a disservice by dating her, because I'm going out to parties and I'm seeing all these girls, and I didn't cheat on her, but, like, I wanted to, you know what I mean? Which is, like, right away in my head, like, that's probably not the right person to.
So you just started dating your parents?
What do you mean?
Well, your parents are responsible. They put rules on you. They do all the stuff that there's a conservative
got you, bro.
thing. Yeah. And then here you are. You can go to college and party all you want. And who do you date? Somebody that's super responsible, academically minded person. Yep. Why do you think you did that?
Safety, right? I guess there's a little bit of security there.
Yeah, because your relationship with your parents wasn't bad.
It wasn't awful, yeah.
But you were oppositional and pushing back on it. But there was a sense of security and safety there with your parents, because they're good people and 100%. They obviously cared about you. And so I bet you started feeling a little out of control. And so, we'll get this girlfriend to sort of keep me in line, but you recognize that it wasn't a good fit because of where you wanted to go.
Yep, 100%. That's like to a T. It wasn't where I wanted to go, and I knew it. And so I literally took the train up to New York City and tried to break up with her. And then a week later, she called me and she was like, "I'm cheating on you." And I was like, "Geez, you know what I mean? I can't handle this."
But which is weird, because then you said it got ugly for you. But you, a week earlier, were trying to break up with her.
Yeah.
And then she let you out a week later by cheating on you, and you take it personal.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I took it super personal, and that's where it became like a self deprecating thing, right? Where I was like, yeah, I deserve that, right? I'm an awful person because I've never felt good enough in my life, and here's just a clear point why I'm not good enough. This girl wants to cheat on me, which is illogical today.
In your addiction, did you ever create scenarios that you knew the outcome were going to be bad for you, but you went along with it anyways because it gave you an excuse to party? I ask that only because I did that in my relationship. I would set up arguments with my ex-wife, or I would set up arguments or scenarios that I was smart enough to know how it was going to end. But the only reason I would go through with it, because at the end I was like, well, I'm going to show you, and I would go drink. That's how selfish I was. And that's what I would do in my addiction. I was such a manipulator that I could manipulate an excuse to use. Did you ever find yourself doing that?
Later, yeah. Not when I was in college, but when it was later in life, where I had gotten some recovery time and then relapsed and was back on the East Coast, not here in Utah any longer. And I there was moments where like my parents would be like, "You need to go back to Utah," and I like didn't let them know like that I was like relapsing or anything. And I'd be like, "Actually, you have you have no control over what I'm doing. I'm doing the right thing right now." And like would like go drink over that, because it's like you don't have the right to tell me.
Yeah.
Like, you need to
Kind of an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back to college. You said you took it super personal and
went off the deep end.
what does that mean?
I went back. I mean, I can tell you the frame by frame of that night.
And this is the night that you tried to commit suicide.
Yes, I went back to my dorm room and I took all of my Adderall, as many Xanax as I had, and started drinking a bottle of vodka. It's a Smirnoff something. Maybe it wasn't vodka. It was like some Smirnoff. I can't really see it that clearly. But yeah, I just sat there and I cried. I was so broken over this girl, and I don't really know why. You know, I think it was just like a mixture of just all these different feelings that I hadn't felt, that I didn't want to feel, were finally coming to the surface.
Had you ever felt suicidal before that?
You know, I did. I remember a night where I looked at my mom and I said, "I'm going to hurt myself." And she'll attest to that night. She talks about that night.
You said that out loud to your mom?
Yeah, I think I'm going to hurt myself. And she was like, "Do you need to go get help?" And I was like, "No, I'll be fine." And I just like kept drinking, you know what I mean? But like I was like really like I had a really, really dark phase when I was at home. Whenever I was at home, I was always going back into this self-loathing, dark, depressed rotation, and I couldn't get out of it. And it was because I just would always get super messed up there, right? I was always just getting intoxicated to a different level. But yeah, when I tried to commit suicide in college, I woke up and that was really one of those things where it's like, thank God, right?
So nobody knew. You had taken the pills, you drank, passed out, I assume, and when you came to...
Oh, no, they knew.
They knew. Okay.
Yeah, I had destroyed the whole the first floor dormitory pretty much.
Okay.
I had ripped the stalls off of the wall, all of the...
In the bathrooms?
Yeah, in the bathrooms, broke all the mirrors, flipped a bunch of couches over. I was like manic, losing my mind. So upset.
Do you remember that?
Not really. I can have like a faint memory of stuff. Like I remember ripping something off the wall. Mm-hmm. I remember that feeling, but I can't really remember that night that well. All I can really remember is taking the pills and drinking. That's about it.
Did I mean, I assume if you're going Hulk on the freshman dorms, somebody tried to stop you? Did anybody?
Yeah, my boy Brian Wan. He's still my friend today. But I mean, like, I like punched him in the face. I was crazy. And he was like, "Dude, stop." And I just like wouldn't. I couldn't. I was really, really, really upset. It was like finally the world had crashed. You know, that's what it felt like.
And you said you woke up the next morning and instead of, you said, "Thank God."
Thank God. Yeah. Called my mom. Said, I think I'm sick, Mom. I think I'm really sick. She said, "Well, you need to come home then." And I came home. It was during Thanksgiving break, too, right around that time. And came home, got an apartment, got that condo, and I actually decided that I was going to go to therapy. We were like, okay, let's go to therapy, but I'm going to choose my therapist. Still holding that control. I really wasn't ready yet. So I decided to grab a therapist offline, who was hot. That was
qualifications.
Yeah, I was totally messed up still. I chose.
You wouldn't have picked Dr. Matt then.
Yeah, no.
What?
Maybe.
maybe before the beard.
But yeah, I worked with her for like 7 or 8 months, and
see any success?
No, didn't see any success.
Were you honest with her?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't ready to get. I wasn't ready to. I really wasn't ready. I knew that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, and my mental health was really deteriorated. But I really wasn't ready to accept that in any shape or form.
Were you going to therapy to appease your parents, or were you going to therapy to just keep up appearances? Well, what was the motivation to go? It
was a mixture of both, right? I was like, okay, maybe one of these days I'll have a good moment. And
something will click.
Yeah, it'll click. Or and also to appease my parents 100%, right? Get them off my back.
But I think those are the most common reasons. I have a theory though, and that is that, with most people you have, well, with everybody we have an unconscious mind and unconscious motivations to do things, and it takes either a lot of digging or maybe some trauma to bring some of those things up to the surface, a lot of self-reflection. You had said to your Mom, I think I'm sick. And Mom said you need to come home, and you did it. So there was part of you that knew. Mm-hmm. And part of you that wanted help. You wouldn't have called your mom that next day if you didn't want some help. Right. But that gets buried deep inside or deep down in that unconscious mind. So I think part of maybe why you would go for 7 or 8 months is, unless she was Heidi Klum, she couldn't have been that hot to keep you coming that long to go in and talk about stuff. And you weren't ready to be honest, and you were lying to her and lying to yourself. But part of you probably was hoping that maybe at this visit, I'll feel better. Something will happen. You weren't ready to invest in that process, but I think that there's an unconscious drive in people, and that keeps them coming back even after relapses and that sort of thing. So
yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that's exactly how I felt. I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I didn't really know what. Besides that, I love drugs and alcohol, and I'm really sad.
You say you had this sick apartment loft. Mm-hmm. And I'm just listening to your story, and I'm fascinated by it. But so far, you've lived a pretty charmed life. I mean, from, Annapolis to Maine, to this college, to this sick loft. How are you funding all this? Was it your parents?
Family, 100%. Yeah, I didn't make money. I mean, I worked for Helly Hansen, which was a clothing company. Yeah. Jacket company. But it was 100% my parents. My parents have always, given me the world. You know what I mean? They've always, whatever I want, I can have kind of thing. You deserve it. You're bright, brilliant. You're the youngest. You're the baby. We'll take care of you, which has changed 100% since getting sober now.
Do you felt like you deserved it?
No, 100%. I mean, how I live my life. Every time, I would, get one thing, it was just always wow, yo, I can't believe that I have this. I've always been grateful. That's the one thing that has been true about me is I've always been grateful for what I have and what I've been given and where I've been and, what I've seen, no matter what. But yeah, 100%, I didn't fund any of that. My family did.
But you've been seeing a therapist for 7 months. You're living in a great loft. As we heard earlier, you started making music.
Yeah. I started making music when I was a sophomore in high school with my friend Nate. And that progressed, and I never stopped. Everyone else stopped, but I didn't. Everybody from my town where I grew up. And I kept on making music. And I still, back then, that's now 7 years ago. Think about that, it's crazy. But back then, it was still terrible music, but I was producing a track pretty much every single day, 100%, in that loft, which was a good time. Yeah.
But you're no longer living in the loft. How did that end?
Yeah, so I had gotten wrapped into the wrong crowd of people.
Okay, now let me ask you this. I feel like you're my little brother, so I'm taking this personal. You got wrapped in the wrong crowd, or did you look for the wrong crowd?
I looked for the wrong crowd. I looked for the crowd of people that do cocaine.
The ones that weren't going to stop you and tell you that you're messing your life up.
Exactly. The people that, we can go out and be out all night and stay out all night and be wide awake at the sunrise.
Because the girlfriend who does calculus in the morning, she's not that type of person.
No, she's not. And we had broken up at that point when I got that spot. And so I found the wrong crowd of people, surfers that love to party. And one night I used to throw parties all the time at my house, at the condo. And we'd smoke and drink. It was crazy. And one night, it was completely by myself, and I was asleep on the couch, and they had gotten a warrant and kicked down my door. They had like 16 dudes wearing like military combat shotguns in my face, dogs running through the loft. Like it was ridiculous. And they thought I was selling cocaine. They're screaming, "Where's the bags? Where's the bags? We know you have the bags. Where's the scale? And I'm just like, dude, like, I don't have it. It's not me. Like, it's not me.
So they'd been watching you, I guess, right? And kind of assuming that because all the surfers and all these other people, musicians, are coming in and out of the loft.
Exactly.
They're all probably well known to be people using and selling. So they assumed yours was the hub.
Yep, exactly.
They thought you were a cocaine dealer, but it was just your parents paying for it.
Exactly. Which is hilarious. Which is wrong. Which is super wrong.
No, yeah. But yeah.
And like my parents are like business owners in Wilmington, in the area that I'm from, and it's sad. They do, so they own a donut shop, right? So they do like donuts with cops, and it's like we know who you are. You know what I mean? Like they know who I was, and that was the messed up part about it.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of guilt and shame around that, but that's when I knew that I needed to make a change. So
what happened to you? Did they take you in?
No, yeah. So they took me in. My parents got a bail for me right away. They because they didn't find anything. They were trying to take me to jail they took me to jail because like I had like residue of marijuana, and they didn't find my pot, which they could have found really easily, and then they would have had something on me because I had a couple pounds of pot, and but they didn't find it, which is crazy. But yeah, they took my bong and they took the weed residue, and they were like, "That's what we're hitting you with." So they took me in, and that was a really bad night. My mom and my brother came and picked me up. My dad was out of town, and at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., they had gone around to all the different. This is what's messed up about it. They went around to all the different Wells Fargos and pulled out all the money that they could.
Because you're only allowed $500 from an ATM.
Yeah, after midnight or something, and so they were they had to pull out $5 or $6 grand. So they were going around to every. Was I got arrested at 11. They showed up around 3.
Not good.
They were pissed.
But you said at this point you got to do something different.
Yeah, and I had gone to a wilderness program, so I came out here again. I went to Balance House. I went to Balance House, which is sober living here in Utah. I had gone to wilderness. I had gone to wilderness and then gone to Balance House. So I had gone to wilderness. So it wasn't when I was 17. It must have been when I was 19 or 20. I'd gone to wilderness. God, that's so long ago, it feels like. I'd gone to wilderness for the first time. That's when I went. And then I went to Balance House directly after that. So I went to wilderness, and that was crazy.
What is wilderness?
So wilderness therapy, which is I went to Legacy Outdoor Adventures. That's what they call it, Outdoor Adventures. Wasn't really an outdoor.
Sounds nicer than it probably was.
Yeah, it wasn't an outdoor adventure. It was an outdoor adventure. I lived outside for 4 months in the backcountry of southern Utah, where we hiked 10 miles a day with a 75-pound pack on, and then twice a week we'd meet with our therapists, and then we'd run groups with the field guides every single day, multiple times throughout the day.
And processing groups, talking about your experiences. Is that what that was about?
Yep, exactly. So we were doing process groups twice a day, and then we also had to do a reading. They were giving us books all the time. But more or less, it just like, I mean, the most I took out of it, because it was awful, the first 2 months that I was there, it was terrible. Hiking 10 miles a day and eating, peanut butter and ramen, like in the backcountry, is really terrible. Sucks. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I took away from that is like, embrace the desert. So I have this on my wrist. This has been on my wrist since wilderness. Embrace the desert, which like for me is like embrace like that emptiness. When you feel sad, when you feel alone, like embrace it. Don't run from it anymore. That's like what I took away from wilderness. I didn't really appreciate it that much.
Well, what is that like when you think about that saying? Obviously, it must be meaningful to you. What does it mean to you? How does it help you now? Yeah.
It's crazy because I rarely ever like think about that. Like this is the first time I've thought about this in probably like a year. Embrace the desert. Embracing the desert for me, like, I mean, whenever I don't know. Today I embrace, like, I face my problems. Right. That's how I've gotten into the position that I'm in today. Mentally, physically, spiritually, economically, whatever in all the different spaces, is by essentially whatever problem that comes to me, I face it head on. And try my best to stand in my truth and do the best I can to make it whatever problem that is wrong right. So embracing that desert, embracing me looking out at hundreds and hundreds of miles with a 75-pound pack on and say I'm going to have to walk across that.
Face it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for the listeners, wilderness programs aren't new. They've been around for quite a while, various forms. And I think that's the goal or the theory behind that sort of treatment, is to get somebody to start to face their fears, to change their life dynamic, to clear the clutter out of their mind and out of their head, and to have a different perspective, hopefully have some insight. It sounds like partially you did and partially you didn't.
Yeah, I definitely needed more like a I mean, it was beautiful, right? I've seen some of the prettiest places in the world, it feels like, looking back on it. I've walked in places where people haven't walked for hundreds of years. I mean, we're finding cans that are from like the 1910, 1915, 1920 old Coke cans, like I saw entire trees that were petrified, like entire, like, I mean, the full tree, not just like a rock. It was crazy to think. So it's like, I mean, I've been in places where people don't go anymore.
But you spent 4 months there and you came and you moved into Balance House, which is a sober living.
Yeah, I did. Great guys.
But I'm sensing a relapse is coming.
Yeah, so I got sober out here for a year. I had met Ian.
At Fit to Recover.
Yeah, he was my sponsor because I heard that he had a studio. So I was like, he's got a studio. I don't want to do AA. You know what I mean? I didn't want to do AA back then. And my house manager at Balance House was like, well, you should get Ian to be your sponsor, because he would always catch me writing music, my house manager. And he's like, you should ask Ian to be your sponsor so that you can work up in the studio. And I was like, he's got a studio? He's like, yeah, upstairs with Fit to Recover. So I went to FTR and I was like, hey, will you be my sponsor? Can I get in the studio? And he's like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like right away, like I was super into it. So we started recording. Like that's what we did. Monday, it started with just Wednesdays, and then Monday and Wednesday, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was like pretty much every day of the week I was recording. And then he was like, set a goal. What do you want to do? And I was like, I want to play a show. I never played a show before. 2 weeks later, a dude named Kosha Dills walked into Fit to Recover.
I like it, Kosha Dills.
Yeah, he's a Jewish rapper, and he's in recovery, and he was doing a show, and Ian was like, yo, you got to get this kid on your line. Like, you got to get this kid on your lineup. And he's like, okay, sure, 100%. I love what you guys are doing here at Fit to Recover. I'll do that for you guys. So I go and play his show, and a bunch of the what are those dudes called again? Sartain and Sanders, the guys that book shows. They were at the event because they like Kosha or something, and they saw me perform, and they the next day I got an email saying like, hey, like we want you to start opening for our artists. Would you be down for that? And I was like, yeah, sure, 100% I will. And then right away I'm like opening up for all these huge artists in Salt Lake. It was super tight. So I started playing a ton of shows, releasing a ton of music. I did this thing where I was like New Music Monday, where every Monday I was releasing a track from Fit to Recover out on like SoundCloud and whatnot. And I grabbed a lot of traction, and a dude actually had hit me up, and my boy, who had lived in New York and Rhode Island, was out here. I was living with him. A homie of his had hit me up and was like, hey, like, you guys should move out here. Like, I work for Alamo Records in New York City. Like, you could potentially start writing for them. Like, come out here. So me and Trey, who Trey doesn't want to stay sober long term, I really didn't want to stay sober long term. We're like, let's send it, right? Let's send it out to New York City. So pack up the house. I dip. We pretty much got an eviction, right? Because we didn't pay. We just left. Total reckless lifestyle. And just bounced and stayed at this homie's house right outside of New York. And then we were staying in New York and then Rhode Island and all these different places, just couch surfing. And the whole time I was just making music, and I relapsed. I started smoking weed. Then I started drinking, eating Xanax, drinking promethazine, doing acid, doing coke. I fell right back into the trap.
That escalated quick.
Yeah, really quickly. It was like within 4 months. It was like everything had just...
And is that what everyone or most people you were associating with were doing that as well? Exactly. Other people making music were doing that?
Exactly, yep. It was the people that I was around and how they were living their lifestyle was very parallel to what I was doing. And and then I had this beautiful girlfriend that I had known from Portland, Maine. We reconnected, and I was living on the East Coast. She was going to school in Connecticut. I'd go out and see her and stay with her. And then I was staying in Rhode Island, which is like the state right next to it. It was like a 8-minute drive from her college to the house that I was couch surfing at. I was kind of like meant to be. I was, spending a lot of time with her, trying not to party as much, right? When I was around her, just smoke weed and say it was like for my mental health. That's what I told her, but not to tell my parents, which is so messed up. And then I went up to Maine and I saw my friend Colby. And Colby had been eating a lot of Xanax. And I was like, this is where I should live. I should move in with Colby. He's like, you can move in with me. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. Like, so I moved up to Maine. I moved back to Maine, and I had had a lot of accolades up there. So people respected me in the city and whatnot, and I got a job really easily. And I was doing Xanax with Colby like pretty much every night. And I woke up in New Hampshire. And I woke up in New Hampshire, right on the border from New Hampshire and Maine, next to a girl that I went to college with that I hadn't seen in like 2 years. And I cheated on Emma. And then Emma found out. And that's when I called Ian. I called Ian that moment when she found out. I hadn't talked to Ian in a while. Ian from Fit to Recover, for people that are...
Yeah.
And I called him and I said, dude, I think I'm going to die. And he said, I'll call you back. Hangs up the phone. I'm really going to die. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really going to send it. Like, nobody really cares. Nobody cares.
That felt like a rejection by Ian?
Yeah. It was like that quick, right? It was like, you know what?
I tried.
Now it's not on me any longer. Because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
He called me back like 3 minutes later. It was like, you have a flight back to Salt Lake City. I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like just talking about that, like, it just, like, threw a wave through my body. Like that there's an angel. Like, there's somebody that's, like, there's somebody that is actually, like, my boy. Like,
he was on it. Like, the moment he heard your voice, he knew what you needed.
Yep. He's like my family. It was like an angel. It was like some angelic, you know what I mean? Like something God sent. He knew. And next day, it was my birthday. I flew back out to Salt Lake. And I got sober. Went to Brighton.
Mm-hmm.
That was a crazy time, too.
How many days did you do in Brighton?
40. I had 40 days in Brighton. Yeah, but that was... I had eaten a large dose of LSD right before I went in, and that really messed everything up because I wasn't like stable when I walked in there for like 2 weeks, so they needed to hold me another week, another 10 days. Because the first week I was really
not there.
Yeah, and I climbed up on a tree. I climbed up a tree, and I was gonna like jump out of it, and they had to like call Ian. And like, I mean, I'm a psychic, you know what I mean? Like, I was unstable, super unstable.
Suicidal?
Yeah. And they had called Ian and Lacey. He was dating Lacey at the time, his girlfriend, and she worked at Brighton. And Lacey came outside and was like, Ian's on the phone. Like, Ben, come down. And I like didn't want to. You know what I mean? I like really, really, really didn't want to. I was really scared.
How long ago was that?
3 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
So, 15 minutes ago, you were talking about how you weren't really into the 12 steps.
Yeah.
And the AAA.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself back in those rooms?
100%. Yep. I got I can say that I 100,000% have been able to get the things that I've gotten today because of the 12 steps of AA. They're not what I live by every day today. But they would set the foundation for me to be a very, very, in my eyes, successful human, right?
What does that look like for you? Because, I mean, I'm listening to your story,
Mm-hmm.
and you've done things that people have dreamed about. You've had chances that people would kill for.
Yeah.
It seems crazy
Mm-hmm.
to all the stuff that was at your footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
What does success look like for you today?
I'm an honorable man. People can call me, and actually, I can show up for them, and whatever the situation is. I give back today. I help a community of people stay sober. Not just me, right? That's selfish. I think if you want to stay sober long term, you have to help people. Because if you don't, you're gonna find yourself alone and staring at a liquor store, staring at a bar across the street. So if you help as many people as you possibly can, then you'll have as many friends as you possibly can.
You know, Dr. Matt, it's I listened to a story, and I see a lot of me in you. You were in here for the first part of the podcast, but something I said is kind of just what you said there in a different way of saying it, but I got sober to live.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get sober to hide, and there's a lot of people that are hiding.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're giving back and you're finding a purpose.
Yeah. I think I knew my purpose. I think I knew my purpose since I was like 13, 14.
Were you afraid of it?
Music. Yeah, I was afraid of it. I was afraid that it would kill me. But I think music is the secret for me to like connect people. Because like, I mean, I developed a music program for Fit to Recover. Co-founded it with a music therapist. And
tell me about that.
Dude, the things that we've done, it's ridiculous. I mean, we have artists that come in who like record entire albums upstairs and release it. We have artists from the national scale that have toured all over the world come and do shows with us. We have people that have walked in with zero experience and super afraid of a microphone or super afraid of a drum, and now they're singing like solos, and they're belting out songs, screaming at the top of their lungs, jumping around on stages in front of crowds of people.
Now, you have a friend of ours who's been on the podcast twice, the only guest to be on this show twice.
Yeah.
the man, the myth, the legend, Keaton Robbins.
Key Dog.
Yeah.
Key D-O-double-G. Yeah, best bass player in Salt Lake City. I'll give him that. I already told him. I mean, like, we have a plan to go on tour next year, and I was like, Key, you have to slap bass. Because, like, I mean, he's ridiculous. He's phenomenal, and he is so nice. That's the biggest thing about Keaton that I love, is one of the nicest people in the world.
I'll agree with that. Just meeting Keaton, like, he drips niceness. You know, he's just one of those sweetheart type of guys, right?
But he's one of these guys that, you know, and so I'm a DJ by trade. Mm-hmm. And so music really speaks to me. And it's been very instrumental in my recovery. 100%. There's certain songs that can get me pumped for the day. There's certain songs that can get me in a mindset. There's just certain songs that can get me through a day or a hard time.
Exactly.
And I think music really binds a lot of us that are in the recovery world. And some people are afraid of it because of the triggering aspects. But the thing is if you work through it, music is powerful.
Oh my God! Like it's ridiculous. I mean, for my experience, right? When I came back out here, I was like, Ian, I need to get in the studio. You know what I mean? Like, because I've never really been good with therapists ever. I just have like
even hot ones.
Even especially hot ones. I like requested a male therapist when I was at Brighton.
Somebody kind of short and chubby, overweight. Dr. Mack, come on in.
That's hilarious. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's for some reason for me, it's hard to just clearly say how I feel. It's just hard. It's really, really, really hard.
I think that's hard for most people, especially for men. We're not really socialized to express our feelings accurately. Casey and I have talked about that a ton on the show.
We don't have the emotional language.
We don't, but music's emotional, and it sounds like that's become or maybe always has been your language.
Yeah, and that's definitely been the secret for me. And the microphone is the therapist. That's the thing that can actually tell me how I'm doing. Because I'll record stuff, right? I'll write stuff down while I'm listening to a beat with my headphones on in the studio, not thinking. I'll just start writing, and then I'll just start recording, right? And then I'll come out and put it on the big speakers and listen to it. I'm talking about killing myself. Like, that's how I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I'm doing.
So it's a gauge. It's a measure of your own.
Yeah, it's like where my
yourself.
mental health is.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like now, today, I mean, it's changed, right? Where that was like 3 years ago, right, when I was first getting clean. I would just like get in the studio and just write, and then I'd like, me and Ian would listen to it and be like, you are sad right now, my guy. And it's like, it makes sense, right? I'm in sober living. I just lost the girl of my dreams. I had $0 to my name, and, you know, my parents don't trust me.
Yeah.
So, you know, it makes sense that I'm feeling that way. Now it's become more of like a job, right, where it's like I have to go into the studio for a purpose. Because I have a lot of people surrounded around me. I have a distribution team, I have a management team, all these different cities, you know, waiting on music and looking for music. So now for me, like in my own space, music can't be that thing that I like depend on for therapy, because it's not logical. I can't do that.
It's kind of shifted purposes in your life. So what do you depend on to stay sober?
That's helping people. 100%. Because I know that if I was just to lean on music for my therapy for long term, I'd definitely go back out. One thing that AA has taught me is you can't lean on just one thing. You can't just lean on the book. You have to lean on like your peers. You have to lean on like getting in connection with God. You have to, you know, lean on like, you know, being honest in all of your affairs, like all these different things, right? If I'm just leaning on music,
it has to be a lifestyle change.
Exactly.
It's holistic. It's not just one thing.
Exactly.
We've said many times on this podcast that the opposite of addiction isn't abstinence. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Exactly.
And you got to find those connections. You know, I'm looking at this right here that Ian sent me, and Broken Promises. Mm. Is that your latest work?
No. The latest work is the song that's a single. I can't even remember the name. It's been like 6 months. I just got a new distribution team, so.
Well, if people want to find out more about your music, and hopefully we'll be able to put some of these on our social media and point people in your direction, or they want to find out about Fit to Recover and the music program that you got going there, how do they find that?
So if you want to find out about the music program or any of the things that we're doing over at Fit to Recover, working out, nutrition, service, and creativity, go to fittorecover.org. But if you want to find me on all platforms, I'm Think Benjamin, one word, ThinkBenjamin. That's all platforms. So Amazon, Apple, Siri, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you find me.
He's pretty much everywhere, Casey.
Yeah. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, your story is fascinating.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your success. I mean, you're 27?
I'm 25.
25.
Yeah.
I mean, to come through all that and be so young, you still got a lot of world ahead of you, man. A lot of life.
That's what the people are telling me. I'm scared though. I'm just, I'm being honest.
I mean, I'm excited to see what happens, and anything we can do to help, we'd love to do it. So,
thank you, guys.
Dr. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Oh, just appreciate you coming on the show, and I love the fact that people can walk away from a show like this and realize that anything's possible, that maybe listening to their own intuition, you knew you had a special gift when you were young, and that was music. And even though music became associated with your addiction, it's definitely been the highway to your recovery and all the good things you're doing for other people. It reminded me of something I'm embarrassed of, actually. When I first was in graduate school becoming a psychologist, I remember learning about music therapy. I don't know why I'd never really tuned into the fact that there was such a thing. And I remember laughing about it, thinking, oh, music therapy. Yeah. Like what are they, goofing around with pots and pans? And that's what I thought.
Kind of.
And kind of, yeah. But then as I worked with people in inpatient settings and saw how music therapy just changed them, I'm a huge believer, and have been for a long time, about how powerful music is in a therapeutic way, in a very real therapeutic way. So I'm glad that there are people like you working with music therapists to make the music relevant in a setting like recovery. So thank you.
100%. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you for stopping by today. You're listening to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, more importantly, about recovery. It's brought to you by our friends at knowyourscript.org. Don't forget, Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.
2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
She was tear-gassed and beaten.
Images of thousands desperate to escape Taliban oppression filled our news feeds. More than 80,000 Afghans made it to America, but the story didn't end there.
It was very cold. There was no power, no heat.
Who would help our newest neighbors? I'm Andrea Smartin. In Stranger Becomes Neighbor, you'll hear the stories of some remarkable refugees who left their homes and their dreams behind, only to start over from zero.
Their only possession was 3 blankets.
And you'll meet Americans who stepped up to help them.
You want me to come when you deliver your baby.
What can one person do in the face of an international disaster decades in the making? That's Stranger Becomes Neighbor. Find us at kslpodcast.com, follow us on Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.